Hell yeah. Hey, guys, now it's time for the professor himself, the professor of science, the man who believes that the earth is round. How you doing, sir? Professor Dave?
Hey, guys. How's it going?
What? Here we go again.
Here we go. Let's do it.
But this time it's
Dave, now that you're here, I just want to start off by saying, fuck you. No, I'm not just playing.
Yo,
nothing can be as bad as last time. So yeah, let me.
I did not, and honestly, I really wanted there to be a real like adult discussion because I like to see that.
Oh, that was very naive of you.
I'm sorry. I know you battle this shit all day. I didn't know.
I know flat earthers. Yeah, I know how they are.
So it's like me and me. It's like me arguing with improv actors. You're not a stand-up motherfucker. It's not the same thing.
Give me a word.
Yeah, give me a shut up. It's like, you know what I mean? I get it. And
soup.
I always love science, but I'm not the guy that you are. I'm not that into. I'm into science, but not like Neil deGrasse, who I've done his podcast and his TV show. But I'm not you guys, and I respect you guys' acumen and the whole night. I thought it was going to be like a real discussion, just people going back and forth, and it didn't happen that way. And
no,
hey,
that's not how it works with flat earthers.
What's up? I would like you to explain, why is the Earth round, sir? Tell us. And yeah,
where do we even begin? Like,
I mean, you could say what flat earthers believe,
or how did we figure out that it was round like 2,500 years ago?
How did we figure out it was round 2,500 years ago?
So the easiest way to figure it out is just basic observation of the celestial sphere. So long time ago, at least the ancient Greeks, like in classical Greece, 500 BCE, so probably before that, honestly, just not as well recorded.
Egyptians.
Probably. I mean, it's entirely possible that isolated scholars pre-classical Greece also figured it out. Yeah. It's just that after classical Greece, anyone educated knew that the Earth was a sphere. And it's based on very simple things. I mean, if you look at the celestial sphere, let's start with even just something as simple as the sun. Okay. The sun rises in the east and sets in the west. It maintains the same angular size as it moves, right? So you got to think, right? For it to be a little object that's just doing little donuts around a flat plane doesn't really make any sense, right? If something like that would be getting bigger as it approaches you and then getting smaller as it recedes, it wouldn't set under, below a horizon. It actually makes a lot more sense if you're thinking of yourself on a surface, on the surface of a sphere that's turning, right? Just imagine yourself in like an office chair.
Okay.
And you're turning in your office chair. Something comes into view in your periphery, and then it traverses your field of view, and then it leaves your other periphery, right? Kind of like that. Right. So that started to make sense, and then they would a lot of it had to do with navigation based on the stars, right? They would orient themselves based on the stars. They would notice that in the northern hemisphere, the stars would be rotating counterclockwise around a point in the sky. And so that's the North Celestial Pole. And then as you would change latitude, everything about the behavior of the night sky would change. Certain stars you couldn't see anymore. Other stars you began to be able to see. All these different things, they figured out that if you think of the Earth as a sphere, all of these observations started to make sense, right? The Earth is a sphere that's turning, so naturally the star that is aligned with the North Celestial Pole, right? If you take a line, if you find the line that is the axis that the Earth is rotating around, and you draw a line to the sky, right? It's kind of like, again, if you're sitting in your office chair, if there's a bunch of fake plastic stars on the ceiling or something like that, like glow in the dark stars, if you look at the one right above you, the one immediately above you, and you spin your chair around, the one right above you is going to look like it's moving, but all the other ones are doing circles. And so if you do a time lapse, so it's all these kind of really basic observations.
It's sort of the access point. Like
would that be like frame of reference type of thing?
You guys are really quiet. Is there any way I can get you guys a little louder?
Can you hear? Hey, hello?
I can definitely hear you. Just if I could get you guys a little louder.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Is that better?
There we go.
Yes. Oh, okay. Sorry about. Would that be like a frame of reference type of thing?
So a reference frame. I mean, you can refer to the Earth as a reference frame.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now, go. Okay, that's good. That's
so. I have a question. So it was one thing that when y'all were going back and forth, and you were talking about the vacuum. I understand that a vacuum is lack of matter, like but in osmosis, right? They say that things of greater concentration move to places of less concentration. So how come the air doesn't float out into the vacuum of space?
Sure. So gravity exists, right? Gravity is a force that is pulling everything with matter. But here's the interesting thing about what flat earthers say about that. They imagine an atmosphere of uniform pressure right next to the vacuum of space, which is not how the atmosphere works, right? The atmosphere gets less dense with altitude, right? The higher you go, the thinner the air is, right? And so it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner until this thing called the Kármán line, which is sort of the arbitrary designation where we say that's more or less the end of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is so thin that it's, for all intents and purposes, a vacuum. Even in the vacuum of space, there is a little bit of matter. There's roughly an atom per cubic meter floating around in space. So space is not a perfect, 100% perfect vacuum, but the atmosphere dissipates, right? All right at sea level, it's the thickest. Then it gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and thinner until it's not there. So when flat earthers imagine there's like this arbitrary line where there's all the air and then no air, they're just not understanding how the atmosphere is built. So gravity holds anything massive, it pulls anything massive towards the center of the Earth. Now, an individual molecule that's floating around in the atmosphere is extremely tiny. So it's very easy for that to accelerate and go travel against gravity. And in fact, hydrogen and helium are so light that they do escape Earth's gravity. They do go.
Would that be the noble gases?
Helium is the lightest noble gas. Yes. Okay. Hydrogen is not. So molecular hydrogen would be H2, but that weighs only 2 atomic mass units. And then a helium atom weighs 4 atomic mass units. So these are the lightest chemical substances. Right? So they're so light that they do float off into space. But oxygen, O2 is 32, and then N2 is 28, and water is 18. So those are heavier, so they stay down here. But if they're accelerated, right there, it's a gradient. So there are molecules that go way up high and then come down, and it depends on heat and different pressure. Parameters.
Sure. Oh, see, that's
so. Here's some good.
I was thinking about also the God. Can you explain that? Well, he was talking about the what was that word?
The converging.
Crepuscular.
Because I know he just said, "What about crepuscular rays?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. So this is just. I mean, he got really mad when I told him that he was just repeating everything you heard from an Eric Dubé video, but that's exactly what he's doing. Is there's this guy Eric Dubé, and it's there's no gravity, it's density and buoyancy, and how is the atmosphere next to the vacuum space, and what about I mean, he was literally just going down the line. So crepuscular rays sometimes. When you see like sunlight shining through a cloud, and then it scatters, and you see these individual beams of light, and from the vantage point of where you're standing, they appear to diverge around you, right? But that's just it's perspective, right? The reason I was bringing up the railroad tracks is it's the same thing. If you stand on railroad tracks, just right on top of them, and and the ground is really flat, and you look way into the distance, they appear to get closer and closer until they converge at a point, right? But they don't do that, right? They're parallel the whole way, right? Yeah. So that's just an example to show you how the mind can play little tricks on you like that. Right. It's just perspective.
Oh, okay. All right, we can ask.
All right, so here's I think a lot of the times, and this is the racial aspect of it, is that in a country where people have been disenfranchised, Black people have a kind of learned skepticism about science because of the pseudoscience. A lot of the pseudoscience, even in sociology and so on and so forth. Even when we look at stuff like the medical profession, the primary cadavers that were used in in the medical practice in Harvard and Yale and Oxford were the bodies of slaves because they were property and so black people didn't have autonomy in life, and they didn't have autonomy in death either, because those were the people they were. Even Marion Sims, the father of gynecological sciences, had slaves in his backyard, and he was just cutting up people and doing experiments
with no anesthesia.
With no anesthesia, even when ether was available. And so I think
Tuskegee experiments.
Right. You know,
I mean, even we could talk to the plutonium files, is where the government did experiments on black soldiers, the effects of radiation on them, and just in general, because if you don't see people as human, this was part of the culture. And I think that the skepticism about science and black people and science is always there.
Yeah.
But I just think the bad thing is that you can't just throw the baby out of the bathwater, because black people have been part of science, the development, that there are black people involved in science and everything. So we were talking about the people that don't believe in that we went to the moon, right? But
You believe we went to the moon, sir?
Of course, yes, we definitely went to the moon. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. I want to hear.
Well, I just want to respond to what Dante said there, because I think it's what's accepted. Obviously, everything that you're saying is correct, and there's a motive to distrust institutions. But that's exactly the point. Is there's an important demarcation that we can make between institutions and science and the scientific process. You can point at something a government has done and say that's bad, and that in no way transfers to, say, the laws of physics. Right. There's no government on Earth that can change the laws of physics. Right. So when you get to something as insane as flat Earth, it's they bring up NASA and the government and all these things. It's like it's got nothing to do with any of this. We've known the Earth is a sphere before any governing body on the entire planet ever existed. Right? These are basic, fundamental aspects of reality that are absolutely irrefutable. You're right. There's nothing about a government or anything like that. So that's part one. I do think most people are on board with that. But then the more subtle thing is, again, to just still kind of take institutions and be skeptical, whatever you want, be scrutinize, right? If the government says something, you can scrutinize it. That's totally fine. But there's still, even modern day, we're still talking about a scientific process, a scientific community that is occurring all over the entire world. Yeah. Every single developed country, people are working in the private sector. They're working in academia. They're working in for their respective governments that are all different kinds of governments, right? There's no way that you can buy off the entire scientific community. Right. You can buy off an individual scientist. It's happened before, right? Nowhere near as many times as people think, but it certainly has happened. And so an individual result, an individual study, you can certainly approach these with skepticism and for whatever motives that you may have, whether they're reasonable or not reasonable. But it's not reasonable to reject the fruits of the entire scientific endeavor, or what, say, an entire field of science says, whether it's biology or astronomy or geology. All the scientists in this field all over the world all agree on something. That's not the result of some government bought off whoever. That doesn't work that way, right? So we need to have everybody have a general understanding of the scientific process and understand that that's the gold standard, right? If something is contradicting scientific consensus, that's what you need to be skeptical about. You don't want to be baselessly skeptical about scientific consensus. Do all your work to understand where that comes from, then the process by which we arrived at that consensus, right? I encourage everybody to learn all of that and not just blindly trust it. But if something comes along that contradicts that, that's what you need to be skeptical about. You don't immediately go, oh, this person's a whistleblower that's, telling us the truth. No, that's the person that you need to be like, I don't know about this person. Let me hear more,
Right.
So, Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like, for instance, we were talking about the like, so I didn't even know this, but because we had this whole conversation and everything, we went to the moon 6 different times, and I think we went into space 327.
The space thing, yes.
But we went to the moon 6 different times, and what's interesting, right?
Many more times unmanned probes,
right? But what I was saying to Godfrey is, there was a movie out years ago called Hidden Figures, where it was these black women who did the mathematics for the Mercury 7 project, which was going into space, going into orbit twice, and then coming back, and so I also think because of there's this innate skepticism about black people and science, because people have used it against people for experimentation, the Tuskegee experiment, amongst other things, that I think we have to understand too that black people as a part of America, or just a part of the world, have all participated in Spanish in science in some way or form. And so these women, like, we're literally talking about a time where you had segregation at NASA, and these women who had to fight to do the mathematics
calculations
for the calculations, where they had separate bathrooms. And so just, for me, it just doesn't make sense that you would create this segregated kind of social construct, have these women, and then fake a lunar landing with people that you want to disenfranchise in the first place.
I know, but I just say, America, I do it in my stand-up. I go, America, we're cheaters. We were competing against Russia, right, with Sputnik and all the whole nine. And I go, and when I was actually in Russia in 2018. I was in Moscow, and I was doing comedy there. I think I was the first American comic to do comedy there, which was weird. I thought other people, but anyway. And I went and I saw they have this big statue in Russia of Yuri Gagarin, okay? He's the guy, you know what I'm talking about, yeah? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's the first guy, cosmonaut, to go into space before John Glenn. Right, they told me that. They were like, yes, he's the first guy to go to space. The guy was like, we're the first guy to go to space before John Glenn. And I'm not going to argue with him because I'm trying to get home. I'm not going to argue with this motherfucker. I had 10 days in Russia. Right. So I go, that's cool. I believe all of that. And I felt that the space race was so serious, and we wanted to beat the Russians, that I said, I think we probably cheated. The whole Stanley Kubrick thing. Go ahead.
Don't you think that Russians would be motivated to expose the fakery and easily equipped to do it?
Of course they would.
I mean,
in a way, yeah. I thought they.
Good point.
Yeah, no, you're right. They would be like, oh yeah.
But that's one aspect to it. But then the other aspects are that, number one, everything that moon landing deniers bring up is laughable, and number two, we have technology. You can zoom into the original Apollo landing sites and see the lander there, and you can see what was left there. There's mirrors that we bounce lasers off of, to like, this is exact, get the exact distance to the moon down to the nanometer and stuff. Okay. It's all it wasn't faked.
Well, it just makes my joke mad funny.
Yeah.
As far as comedy, you can do whatever you want. And I go, listen, man, Dave, as a respectable science man, you would even laugh at my joke, because I go,
oh, totally. Yeah,
here's the thing.
Comedy's comedy.
First of all, here's the thing. I say, how could we have landed with those shitty ass rockets back then? Those shits were trash compared to like the technology we have now. Those rockets were trash. I go, where'd they get the gas? Where'd they stop for the gas? How'd they refill? Hold up. And when they landed, I said, let's forget about the equipment, forget about the technology. The emotion didn't match. The emotion when they landed, one small step for man, one giant leap for man. I said, you just landed on the fucking moon, bro. That was bad acting that day. If I landed on the fucking moon, bro, like, look at what happens when we're terrestrial, when we score touchdowns or hit home runs. The fucking excitement. We should have been like, oh my God, we fucking did it. You know how the speaker gets fucking, we fucking did it. Russia sucked my dick. You know what I mean? And we would have planted a fucking Wu-Tang flag right there on the fucking surface. You feel me?
The difference in mentality between football players and astronauts, I guess. They're a bunch of mathematicians and engineers. And
hey, there's
weirdos.
some ball players that are mathematicians.
Yeah, not like that, though. Jesus.
I know, I got you.
There was something I was going to say. Go ahead.
And also flat earthers say that the planets are not actually solid like spheres. They're like light. They're like light.
I don't know.
So no, that's what he was saying. They're like light. I forgot what the word he was using. They're not real actual like spheres. Like Saturn isn't real, Neptune, Uranus, Pluto, they're not real.
This is insane. Like I've seen, anybody like with commercial telescopes or telescopes that anyone can buy for like $300-$400, you can see all of these planets in pristine detail. Let alone if you go to an actual observatory.
Yeah,
right? I'll go to Mount Wilson Observatory, or I'll even go to Griffith, or even Mount Wilson,
right?
And see these things. I mean, Saturn and stuff looks really cool, but the coolest is the moon. I mean, I've seen the moon with my own eyes in a level of detail, craters and shadows, and just scanning for minutes across the surface of it. The reason flat earthers say that is because they take pictures of the planets with cameras, and they don't know how to use them. So they don't know how to set exposure levels and stuff like that. So they just get this weird looking blob, and they're like, see, it's not, it's like, dude, look at it through a telescope, look at it through the thing that you're supposed to look at it through, and tell me what you see. It's a planet, right? And not to mention that we've landed on many of them and flown by all the rest. But of course, all that's fake CGI because they say so.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, I believe the satellites and stuff like that. What was that one? Skylab. Remember Skylab? There was Skylab, and there was a bunch of other ones.
Well, they some of the what I was talking about, those black women that did the hidden. Yeah. One of them was actually on a satellite. She actually, I don't know if it would be a satellite, but she not only worked the mathematics for that, but actually later on, I think 61, 62, and then later on she was living on a I don't know if you would call it a satellite or something. I guess she was like a Skylab, I guess.
Wait, she was living on one of them?
She was on
in space.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
I think the ISS is the only one that people have lived on, but I could be wrong, I guess.
Okay. I mean, it might have been the ISS. I'm not sure. But here's the other thing. I think I've heard that science has evolved so far that it's less observable to like laymen than like there was a time where you could say, okay, why is the sky blue? It's the reflection of the water to the sky, whatever. And I think that science has gotten so complicated that the layman can't really understand it. And I think that is that one of the things that creates this whole conspiracy.
Yeah, the frontier, the 20th century, right, from 1900 to 2000 saw this unbelievable level of progress in every area of science, physics, chemistry, biology. I mean, just before 1900, right, the late 1800s, we barely knew that molecules exist. We were still talking about like how to prove that there are atoms. And now we have a level of command over the molecular world. We can build any molecule we want. We can manipulate the genome. We can do all these crazy things. So the frontier of any scientific field is completely unintelligible to any layperson. Right. That's just how it is. Not only to any layperson, but to other scientists in different fields. Yeah. Right. Ask an astronomer what's to explain the most recent biochemistry discovery. They're not going to be able to do it. You know what I mean? It's just not. So that is definitely a problem. How foreign it is, and so people can either react with, get defensive about it and say, "Well, I don't understand it, so it's not true." Yeah. Or other people will say, I'm very inspired by that. I don't have time to learn about it, but I respect it from afar, and I, trust scientists generally, roughly. You know what I mean? Yeah. So,
I mean, I watch your content a lot, and I've seen you talk about stuff, and where you've said, I'm like this year, I'm going to work on understanding this stuff. Like I have a rudimentary understanding of this, but I don't have the expertise to do that because it's the scope of it is so. It's like like I watch a lot of atheist debates and stuff like that, and I read a lot of stuff on. I didn't finish school, but I went to school for genetic engineering, and so I'm always in that. But anytime I hear somebody go, I hear religious people talk about like Kent Hovind or these guys that talk about Darwinism. As soon as they call it Darwinism, it's kind of a key.
Do you
to
believe
know.
in Darwinism?
Yep.
You believe in Darwinism?
Yeah, so Darwinism is not really a term that biologists use unless they're speaking in a historical context.
Right.
The reason that science deniers and the reason that creationists use the term Darwinist is because they're trying to liken the field of evolutionary biology to an ideology, right? Darwinism. Darwin is the prophet, and Darwinism is the blind faith in that prophet. When in actuality, modern evolutionary biology would be totally unrecognizable and foreign to Darwin. He would have no clue. He didn't know he didn't know genetics, like what DNA is. He barely even knew that he didn't know about molecules. Yeah. So it's like he would have no idea what's going on in evolutionary biology. So Dante is absolutely correct that when they start talking about Darwinism, that's an alarm flashing there.
So I could say, because it's so funny when we were talking about buoyancy, and we look at the formula and the G.
Yeah,
gravity's in the fucking.
It's a reactionary force to gravity. Without gravity, there's no buoyancy.
There's no buoyancy.
You can't calculate buoyancy without gravity, and gravity's in the actual formula where Jamar was like, "There's no such thing as gravity. It's only buoyancy."
Because think about it. If like submerge a beach ball at the beach, right? If you let go, it's going to go pop up, right? But why is it doing that? It's because of gravity. It's because gravity is pulling the water more strongly than the beach ball. So the beach ball, Stop. Wait, what?
So the gravity, because gravity is denser, it's pulling the water down,
or the water is dense.
The water is more dense.
The water is more dense. Right.
So there's more mass in confined to a smaller area per unit area, per unit volume. Right. There's more mass per unit volume with the water, so it's pulling the water more strongly. So it's not that the beach ball is trying to get up. It's that gravity is pulling the water more strongly, so the water displaces the beach ball. Same with a helium balloon in the air. The helium balloon isn't flying away. It's the air that's getting pulled down more strongly than the balloon, so the air displaces the balloon below it.
That's crazy.
So without gravity, you don't have that.
And we think it's flying away.
Yeah.
Right.
Now,
God damn it! How do birds fly, Dave? Damn it!
Wait, wait
a minute. So birds aren't really flying. The air is pushing them down. God, no, that's what's happening.
Yeah.
When birds ride the thermal, when you see the hawks and the vultures, when they're just like is there an example? Is that have anything to do with any like that at all? Because when when they ride the thermals, they just sit there.
Well, the air is rising. Hot air rises because of thermal expansion, right? Okay. So it's still about density, but when air or really anything, when anything is heated up, it expands, right? Because the particles have more kinetic energy, so they're pushing more. So hot air expands, and so if it's less dense, it's going to rise. That's really what wind is, right? Wind is colder air replacing hotter air that has risen. That's crazy. And so if you have hot air rising, a bird can just ride that essentially.
Right. See, I'm asking these questions because I want you to answer them because you're a science guy. So it's fucking
happy to
cool.
do it.
It's fucking cool.
High tides and low tides. I was told that it's the pull of the moon, the gravitational pull of the moon.
Always has been.
So there's wherever
and the sun. There's lunar tides and solar tides.
Solar tides.
Right. So it's pulling it. So when there's a high tide somewhere, there's a low tide somewhere else. Yes.
Yes, that's right. It creates a bulge. There's a tidal bulge. And so the higher tides are opposing each other, and then the lower tides are in between. But that's just sort of ends up traveling around. We're moving. The moon is going around us around 27 days is the orbit there, and the Earth is turning. So we're kind of where the so the moon goes around us so much more slowly than the Earth turns. So where that tug is happening kind of stays roughly aligned in the direction of where the moon is. Not exactly. There's a slight kind of delay. Yeah. But it's sort of pointing roughly towards the moon. as the Earth spins under it. So the tide is going to move.
So this axis, right?
Yeah.
When you now I'm in my little brain, I'm trying to go. Okay, the reason why, because remember he did the tennis ball thing. Well, how come when you put the thing in tennis ball, it's so how is there water and it's not falling off of the Earth?
Because of the mass of the Earth.
And next, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so this is just one of the demonstrations of how dumb flat earthers are, right? Falling to what? Right? People like flat earthers, when they say that because they're imagining somebody holding a globe standing on the ground, and they're imagining water falling off of the globe to the ground. So they're just reinforcing that things fall to the ground, which is why water sticks to the earth and everything else, because it's getting pulled to the center of the earth. So down is towards the center of the earth. It's as simple as that.
So it's just it's just the gravity that's just holding everything.
Period. So you could never. It's an impossibility to create a model. Like he kept saying, I want to create a model. You need to create a model where the water sticks on a ball, which is an impossibility to do that. I mean, I don't. You probably couldn't even do that in space in a vacuum.
No,
right?
well, you could do it in space, but that's a practical impossibility too. Because how are we going to get way away from any
gravitational pull?
Sure. No, if you were not near any large body, yes, water would be attracted by gravity to a bowling ball or
like in a black hole or.
Black hole. That's a whole nother level.
That's a whole nother level right there.
Is the strongest source of gravity in the universe. So that wouldn't
That's
be
some
good.
Carl Sagan shit, son.
Yeah. But it also works in like if you have you seen water floating around in the ISS?
Yeah.
I mean that's not no gravity, because this is a common misconception. There is gravity. It's just that they're in free fall, right? They experience gravity just like we do. It's just that they're in constant free fall. So everything is floating. But what it means is that it can't fall to the ground. So what it ends up happening is you see all the surface tension and all of those effects very clearly, and it just floats in a little sphere. Same with raindrops too, right? I mean, a drop is a sphere, is spherical.
Question. If the Earth, there was this one, I think deGrasse explained it. If the Earth stopped spinning, would we all float away? Would we float away?
No, certainly
what
we
would
would
happen?
not. No, we wouldn't float away. I mean, the gravitational pull is due to the mass of the Earth, right? So the mass of the Earth doesn't change just because it stops spinning. If it stopped spinning on a dime, wow, that would be chaos. That would be complete mayhem.
Yeah.
We would get flung all over the place, but not up to space.
Okay, I thought we were all just.
That's because
when I used to say that we would just all float off.
When I was younger, I would I used to do my own stereo equipment, but I sucked at it. So I used to not mount the speakers, and the speakers would all be on the back dash. And so if I stopped short, I give it, and then the speakers used to hit me in the back of the head.
And that's how you thought. That's centrifugal force, wouldn't it be?
Not centrifugal. Centrifugal would be circular, but
inertia.
Inertia,
my fault. Inertia, yeah. But okay, because yeah, that's what I thought. I used to think that they would flow. But I think deGrasse said we would sort of like go sideways at a speed.
Yeah, you'd fly. I mean, because think about it, right? It's like when acceleration or deceleration happens, right? When you're riding in your car at constant velocity, feels like you're just sitting in a chair, right? But if you slam on the brakes, you fly forward, right? So slam on the brakes of the Earth. We'd all fly in the direction that we were going, which is the direction it was turning. We would all keep flying that way, and it would be awful. Most of us would die, I imagine. But yeah.
Well, this is.
I got one more thing.
You go.
Because I got him, so I got to pick his brain.
I know. He look how ready he looks. He's just like bringing
his stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I just want to make sure we're not coming with some, because it's like you're like, come on, bring us your elementary shit. Come on, guys, you got some more dumb questions.
It's fun.
Well, I'm glad it is. Go ahead. Yeah. So you often hear people who don't believe in evolutionary biology, and they say, well, how there's people evolved from monkeys, how come they're still monkeys? Now, I understand that it's a different, that all human beings are primates, but could you Explain that.
Yeah. So this is the creationist equivalent of all the dumb flat Earth talking points that we've been going through here. So we did not evolve from monkeys. Monkeys and humans have a common ancestor. It's not even the most. We're not even the most closely related. We
bonobos, right? Is it bonobos?
Bonobos and chimps. Yeah, bonobos and chimps would be. I mean, chimps and then bonobos, a very, very close second, are our closest ancestors. So there's nothing extant. Extant meaning alive today. Evolved from anything else extant or alive today, right? It's a tree of life. And if you follow every branch to modern day, right, nothing came from what's around today. Everything. If you take each branch back to where, right, there's a point where one branch splits into two branches, right? So if you go back enough time, you'll get to where those two branches meet, and that's the common ancestor of the of those species. So chimps and humans, that branch occurs. I think it's about 6 million years. I could be a little bit wrong on that. Off the top of my head, it's about 6 million years. You go back to other primates, gorillas and orangutans and stuff. Yeah. You have to go a little bit further. Other, monkeys and things, you got to go further back. All mammals evolved. 150 million, 200 million. I don't remember the exact numbers. If you can go all the way back to all animals, we are you name any animal on Earth, we are related to it. And the branch occurred somewhere within the past 600 million years or so. We're even related to plants and fungi. Now that branching occurred when life was entirely unicellular. So you have to go way back, a billion years or more, right? So you go a long time back for that. But everything is related. It's just a matter of how distantly related. So populations of organisms change over time. You can have a population of organisms that splits into two, and then they have two separate lineages, and then they evolve differently because they experience different stimuli. So very gradually, right? That's why two very closely related primate species may have a lot in common, and then they just have some small differences that are due to diverging pathways over the past few million years. Things like that. And so, really with creationists, it's just an inability to comprehend phylogeny, the tree of life, and these kinds of things. That's basically it.
Huh. Interesting. So Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal and all the
cousins. Would be cousins of whatever that Java man, and all of, okay.
Yeah. Neanderthals, Denisovans, right? These are the most recent kind of subspecies. So Homo is the genus, Homo neanderthalis. Homo erectus would be what Homo sapiens evolved from. Right. But there are Homo habilis, many other Homo species, which evolved from Australopithecine. So Australopithecus afarensis and immensis africanus. There are about a dozen species of
he hit more, Africanus. I heard it. I heard Africanus, baby.
Definitely. Homo sapiens originated in Africa, as well as prior hominin species also originated in Africa.
Yeah. So. What about no homo?
No homo. I was going to say no homo, baby. No homo.
Wait, we got the chat.
What's the chat saying, man? They got questions for Dave?
So I'm seeing Dante Nero, thank you to you and Godfrey for reaching out to Professor Dave and hosting him. He can drop knowledge. Really appreciate that. Ferdinand Firmament, though, says in 2025 to this date, we've never flown from the tip of South America straight across to Australia over Antarctica. Can Professor Dave explain that?
That's happened many times. It doesn't go over Antarctica because that's not the way the path goes. But come on, this is ridiculous. I heard you guys talking about the final experiment, the Antarctica thing earlier with the other guy. Yeah. I've been following that very closely, so I'm very happy to talk about that. Yeah. It's the funniest thing in the world because they went and saw the 24-hour sun, and now all the flat earthers are flipping out and calling the ones that went shills and casting them out and everything. It's really funny. But no, there are plenty of direct flights in the southern hemisphere, which already obliterates a flat earth. It's not possible on a flat earth. But Sydney to Santiago, these kinds of things. The thing is that you can't pick any two arbitrary points and say, why isn't there a flight between them? Right? That's not how air travel works.
Happen,
right? Right. You need to have enough people that want to take a flight regularly for them to schedule it. So you need, the interesting thing about the world is that 90% of the human population lives in the northern hemisphere. It's kind of crazy, but if you think about all the where the equator is, right? What are the major cities below the equator? There certainly are some, but there's so few compared to, China and India and all these places that have most of the people. So there's Santiago, there's Buenos Aires, there's Johannesburg, there's Sydney, a couple other Australian cities. Wellington is not very big anyway in New Zealand. So there's not a lot of them, but they are there, right? Sydney to Santiago runs like 4 times a week, both ways. And they all do it directly over the Pacific Ocean. They go close to Antarctica, but they don't hit it because it actually, you have to look at the Great Circle route. It goes the shortest distance, which ends up kind of dipping in latitude to some extent because the latitude circumferences get smaller as you go down towards the South Pole. So the flights sometimes don't make a lot of sense if you look at them on a flat map. You're going, whoa, why do they do this crazy dip? It's because as you go farther south, it's not as far, right? So, so those flights happen all the time.
Okay, well, he blasted that like Matumbo. No, I'm sorry, don't work. What's the next question? Damn, you smacked shit out that one.
No more questions. Just a lot of people giving their condolences for the death of Lord Jamar.
Whoa! Oh, come on! Oh, my
they're saying rest in peace. They're being nice about it.
Wow! Oh, wow!
Yeah. I was pretty pleased with the response. It was very uniform, positive response. Usually, there's a little bit of pushback. Somebody doesn't really, but this was pretty universal. Like,
yeah. Any other? They don't have any other question. No one over there has any other question. I thought there would be like, whoa, yeah. Let's go ahead.
Can you explain the flat Earth experiment and how I know that the sun. You explain it, so it's better. If you
So it's really, really funny. So for a very, very long time, so the flat Earth model, if you can call it one, because they have this flat disk, but there's seasons and day and night that they have to explain, right? They have to pretend to explain it, and so in the northern hemisphere, in the winter months, you get a lot more. As you go further north, it gets more and more darkness, right? There's a darkness for longer periods of time in the winter, and then in the summer, right? If you go all the way up to the Arctic Circle, you can get nearly 24-hour night and then nearly 24-hour day, and then the same thing happens in the southern hemisphere. And so they explain it by a sun doing little donuts, little concentric circles. And in our winter, it's really close. In our summer, it's very close to the center of their little disk there. And so they think that works out because it illuminates the northern hemisphere more so we get the longer days, and because it's so tight in there, the southern hemisphere doesn't get much sunlight, so that they think that works. But then in our winter, it goes all the way out here, so it's going around the perimeter, close to the perimeter of their little disk, and so that ends up not working because what happens is now in the south, as you go all the way even to where people live, like southern Argentina and Australia and stuff, when it's in December, mid-December and January, it's light most of the day, right? In Ushuaia, Argentina, it's daylight for like 19 or 20 hours. And so how does that work with this thing going all the way out here when it's on the other side of the disk? How is it illuminating over there while in the center it's 24-hour night?
Because it would travel. It has longer to travel. You're saying.
Well, it's just how is this point source of light illuminating the absolute other side of the disk and not the center? It doesn't make any sense, right? So it's this silver bullet that demolishes their whole thing. And so what they've always said is that there is no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. Of course, it doesn't matter, and I've made videos on this. Like, just go to the southern tip of Argentina. You can't explain that either. But they've been saying this thing for so long. There's no 24-hour sun in Antarctica. It's fake. It's CGI, and you can't go to check for yourself. Or NASA's there, and the penguins with guns, and they're going to shoot you, and they'll turn you away. Right? You can't go there. It's a government conspiracy, right? So this pastor Will Duffy from Colorado said, "Well, all right, let's go. I'll pay," right? And he's offering trips to flat earthers.
Yeah, now he's
to the
like,
more
let's
prominent
go.
Yeah, he's like, you guys talk a big game, right? So let's go see for ourselves. The moment this began, it was this meltdown where flat earthers are like, no, like he's going to take us there and then the government's going to kill us and like, oh, blah, blah, all these conspiracies. So a couple of flat earthers were like, okay, let's do it. And they went, and this happened last month. And sure enough, they saw 4 days of the sun going up around. And since that's happened, they've done all the live streams, they've done all the videos. Those two prominent flat earthers have been ousted out. Yeah. They're shills.
Who Whitsitt and
they're casted out because they were wrong.
Because they turned against them because they're saying that they were shills, that they were
What are shills? What are shills?
Like paid disinformation agents, right? The government's paying them to lie to the people, right? So bear in mind, these were two of the main
dudes
that all the flat earthers kind of worship and were like, yeah, you guys are heroes and everything. And so they see it. They say that they did not think they were going to. I don't really believe that, but whatever. So they're there and they're like, yeah.
You don't believe that you don't believe that they believed that it was. Why not?
Not really, because it's so utterly indefensible and falls apart so immediately.
So why would they go to? Because I mean, there were so many guys that declined from going to this thing.
Yeah.
That soon as they like because they're making money off their YouTube channel,
right? Because they're afraid it was going to be debunked.
Yeah, they monetized it. So why would they go?
That you're correct that might be evidence that they did to an extent really believe that they weren't going to see it. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so anyway, they go down there. They're like, "Yep, it's there. Sorry,"
and then turned against them.
Comes like, "It's a green screen." No, it's not a green screen. We're shooting from all angles, and here's a drone going around. There's no green screen.
Amazon
okay, you're
Prime.
inside a studio, like the one in Las Vegas, the Sphere. You're inside a studio.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, like, what the hell are you talking about? And so those two guys have been cast out, and then for the past month they're all just like flipping out and making up all this insane crap.
It's 3 of them that went though. Yes, 3 of them went.
Technically 4, but one of them was not someone who had a channel or anything, and then one of them I hadn't heard of. I mean, it was 2 prominent if you can call it that, ones that are like held up, propped up by the community, and then 2 other ones. So technically 4 flat earthers and something like 4. I refuse to use the term globe earthers. They're flat earth debunkers also went, and they were all live streaming and filming this and filming that and doing
like 35,000 a person.
35,000 a piece. They were like, all right, come on, I got.
Which is weird because the what is the priest or what was he, a reverend or whatever, the guy who did it,
Pastor Will Duffy.
The pastor. He believes that the earth is only 1,200 years old.
Damn.
That I haven't talked to him about it. Some say that he is a young earth creationist. I haven't really asked him about it.
1,200 years old.
He only believes that the earth is only
6,000. 6,000.
6,000.
I was like 12.
Yeah, 600.
I mean, their Lord and Savior was supposedly born a little over 2,000 years ago, so 1,200 doesn't work.
Right.
People can just come up with shit. I believe that the earth is a parallelogram. Now what?
Yeah.
How about that? You know what I mean?
And some people do that. I mean,
they just go, fuck it. I'm going to believe this today, you know?
But it's so,
honestly, there are people who throw around the notion that this modern incarnation of flat earth was truly like a psyop and like, even from the CIA, just kind of like throwing out little information as a social experiment. What's the dumbest thing that we can get a certain proportion of the public to latch onto? And then they did. I mean, not a lot, but so that may not be true. But it's really absolutely insane that this is happening right now.
Do you believe in extraterrestrial? How about that? Do you believe in that?
I would bet a lot of money that other life exists. I don't believe any has been here. I don't think that we've interacted with it or seen any of it. But
so all these
I would be shocked if we were the only life in the universe.
All these discs that are being seen over the years, you think it's just bullshit?
I do. Yeah, I think it's just bullshit.
Well, they also say that a lot of the model for what the aliens look like have changed with the movies, so they talk about the gray man now, but that wasn't the model before, like the flying. So it just depends on what where they were attaching themselves to this stuff. It's weird. So I got one more thing.
No, dude. Go ahead.
I'm a fucking nerd.
I know you want to get what you got. Is there somebody? Yeah. Oh, they got somebody. Yeah, bring that motherfucker. What's up?
Well, no. So this is speaking of space, the Van Allen radiation belt. People want to know what's up with that. Can we cross that? Does this have any bearing on this conversation?
All right, here we go.
Yeah. This is another thing that flat earthers talk about. They act like it's like a physical barrier. It's just so Earth has a magnetic field, right? And so the way the magnetic field lines work, what it does is so there's a thing called the solar wind.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is expelling high energy particles that are streaming into space. And so this will collide with the Earth, but we are protected by a magnetic field. And what the magnetic field lines do, because they're charged particles, so they align with the magnetic field and then they travel to the poles. So that's what the Northern Lights is, and in the South too, is charged particles from the solar wind are entering Earth's atmosphere there and colliding at very high speeds with atmospheric particles, and so the energy and the scattering from that is what creates the lights of the Northern Lights.
Aurora Borealis.
Aurora Borealis. Yeah. So the Van Allen belts. We're just talking about these belts where the charged particles are following the magnetic field lines of the Earth. So it's just a region directly outside of Earth's atmosphere where there's a higher concentration of high energy charged particles.
Okay.
So it's not like a wall or anything. You just go right through it. It is dangerous in the sense that if you're not properly shielded from them,
radioactive.
They can collide. It's radiation, and it can collide with you, with your DNA and give you mutations, and you can get cancer. And that's we take that into account. We knew that before we ever went to space, and our spacecraft are equipped with. Now, even so, the astronauts when they travel through them do receive a higher dose of radiation than if us just standing on Earth. I mean, that's part of the job, right? You get a risk, but it's very easy to calculate, right? How bad is it, right? It's not bad enough to not go. It's not that bad.
Is the sun an old star?
So not compared to many other stars. It's a pop 1 star. Mm-hmm. So all right, how we don't need to. It's tough to summarize the whole history of the universe, but a lot. When you have a cloud of gas and dust that coalesces to form a star. So the first stars were occurring 12 billion years ago, and then the lifetime of that star runs out, goes supernova, ejects all of the heavier elements that it has synthesized out into space, and then you have the next generation of stars that can coalesce from that material. So we're a more recent. The sun is about 4.5 billion years old. So that's 10 billion years, roughly 9 billion years into the lifetime of the universe. So there are many billions of stars that formed and died prior to our star even existing. So that's pretty interesting.
When they disappear, do they turn into black holes? Is that when they implode in themselves, right? And that's when black holes occur, right?
If they are of sufficient mass, if the core of that planet, if the core of that star is above the Chandrasekhar limits, about 1.5 solar masses or something, just for the core of that star, it is so incredibly massive. So this is, I wonder if I can explain this really succinctly, but so what powers stars is fusion. So you have all of this hydrogen. Hydrogen is just individual nucleons. So you just have protons and then there's neutrons in there. So they're flying around. There's this intense gravitational pressure. They're going so fast that they fuse. Normally, protons are positively charged, so they normally repel each other. Mm-hmm. But if you get them going so crazy fast that they slam into each other with so much energy, the strong nuclear force takes over and they fuse. And when they do that, there's this thing called the mass defect. A little bit of that mass is converted into pure energy. E equals mc squared, right? It loses a tiny bit of mass, and that's converted into energy, right? Yeah. And so once you run out of hydrogen, it can't do that anymore, and it starts to contract. Then it starts doing more stuff, like helium nuclei will fuse, and so you can get more different types of fusion. But eventually there's no more fusion that can happen, so there's no more energy going out. And that's when gravity wins and it starts to crush in. And so that's where the mass of the star matters. If it's a lower mass star, it leaves a white dwarf. And so there's a planetary nebula, the outer layers come off. If it's of a higher mass, it's going to crush down so hard that it becomes a neutron star. It becomes basically one gigantic atomic nucleus, the size of Manhattan. And so those are pulsars, are neutron stars. If it's even more massive than that, the degenerate pressure between the nucleons is not sufficient, and gravity crushes it even further than that to a point of infinite density. That's a black hole, and that's something that not even light can escape from.
No light can escape from. That's when you said E equals mc squared, because I know Einstein, when he was figuring out, didn't he had the photoelectric theory too? He had two that he was going with, right?
He explained the photoelectric effect. Yeah, that was one of his seminal papers in 1905.
Right. So, when I remember when I would see the drawings of him when he would have that graph and then there'd be a dent. Was that the bending in the universe? What was that? I never really got a good explanation of it. Was he explaining black holes, or was he explaining there was like a dents in the universe? You know what I'm talking about? Because he would have
it's a few different things. I mean, so so general relativity is what describes the curvature of space-time. He developed that in 1915, 1916. Right. So that was later. He had his three papers. Special relativity actually came first. Okay. That was one of them in 1905. Then there was photoelectric effect and Brownian motion, which is ironically the one that he got. Not ironic, but it's odd that he got the Nobel for that one.
Not the E equals MC
not relativity. Yeah. There's a lot of politics involved with why that was the case, but they knew that he deserved a Nobel, obviously.
I know why. I know part of it. He was a German Jewish man, and they were, and all of those guys, Boers, and all those other German scientists were hating against him. I read the biography, Walter Isaacson's Einstein, so I was like, I've always been interested in Einstein, so I saw the hatred and the politics that were going on, and I was like, wow. So,
yeah, the 1920s was only a decade before the beginnings of Nazi Germany, so you can imagine the implications there. Yeah. But so general relativity is where he talks about the curvature of space-time. So black holes are a ramification of that. They're a prediction of general relativity, but they were not observed for quite some time. So he didn't really do too much with them. That's more of like, in the 50s and 60s, they started really figuring out black holes. But it is, that's exactly right. General relativity predicts that black holes must be, and then we found them. So
okay, got one. I got another one, man. Got another one. Remember the Jupiter effect?
The Jupiter effect.
There was a book written called The Jupiter Effect. It's like the 70s or 80s. And it said Jupiter was going to collide into planet Earth. Like, hey, Mike, could you do me a favor? Look up Jupiter Effect. I'm telling you, it was like, I think my dad had a book. It's like Jupiter Effect. What the hell is this? They were like, there's a possibility that Jupiter will be colliding into planet Earth. You know how they always say there's an asteroid coming towards us. There's, they always got those things in about. Yeah. So you believe in Halley's Comet every 76.1 years, yeah?
Sure, of course.
Halley's Comet. Okay.
There are comets, yeah.
But when they say Halley's Comet, is it just the one comet always coming back around every 76.1 years?
No, there are tons and tons of comets. That's just a very famous one. There
I always thought
thousands and thousands of them.
Okay. Because I know
Mike's got you.
So what happens? Okay. I think I can answer this in pretty quickly. Okay. So when a system forms, right, you have just this cloud of gas and dust that begins to coalesce, and as it gets closer and closer and denser, little inconsistencies and things start to cause it to flatten out into a disk. And so you have this cloud that condenses into a disk. It's like when you spin pizza dough, right? When you spin pizza dough, it starts to become flat, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So now you have this disk, and And so where the matter coalesces, obviously most of it in the center, that becomes the star that all the bodies are rotating around. And then you get planets wherever they end up. It's totally random for every system. And so those planets tend to have roughly circular orbits because they're all forming from the same disk, right? So everything's rotating the same way. So all of the planets have roughly circular orbits. Some have higher eccentricities than others. So some are almost perfectly circular. Some are not quite circular.
Right.
But so all the planets have these circular orbits. So unfortunately, absolutely not. There's no way Jupiter's going to collide with Earth. That's definitely not going to happen. But then as you get farther out, so you get trans-Neptunian objects, and then even further out, you get this thing called the Oort cloud. And so you have these tiny objects. And so if something is very, very small, it requires not that much force to accelerate it, to deflect its path, right? So it's going in this circular orbit, but then some other massive body kind of passes by, and by gravitational influence, it sort of dislodges it from its orbit. And that sends it into this highly elliptical orbit where it's plummeting towards the sun and then whips around the other side and then comes back out. So now because of this event, right, a collision or a near miss or whatever it is, it's sent into this new orbit.
So like an elliptical.
Is that when we lost Pluto?
No, Pluto's still where it is.
Or what was the other?
I'm sorry. You mean it's not a planet anymore, right?
Yeah, it was that, and then they brought it back. Then there was some other planet X. There was some X shit. So it was not. That's bullshit. Okay, no, it was just you know, every once in a while some astronomy pops up, and you go, oh,
yeah,
okay.
So Pluto got demoted because we started to understand that there's so many trans-Neptunian objects. So past Neptune, there's so many of these objects that are kind of clustered around in there that if we called Pluto a planet, there were hundreds of other objects that we now also have to call planets. So it's easier to just say it's not a planet and then say that in order to qualify as a planet, it has to clear the vast majority of its orbital radius of debris. So you can't have a bunch of stuff scattered around in that orbit and have it be a planet. So like if you look at all the things that we do call planets, in that particular orbital radius, it's cleared. All of that material condensed into that planet. It was all the material, you know, if you go this distance away from the sun, all of that material became Mars, right? This distance, all of that material became Jupiter, minus some Trojan asteroids and stuff like that. But if it's something's very small, it can get this new trajectory and become a comet. But Jupiter is the most massive planet.
Yes.
I mean, that's not going to happen. So,
read the Jupiter effect, Mike. See what? Watch. It was crazy.
All right, the Jupiter effect. Sorry, it took me 1 second here. Is a 1974 book by John Gribben and Stephen Plageman, in which the authors predicted that an alignment of the planets of the solar system would create a number of catastrophes, including a great earthquake on the San Andreas Fault on March 10th, 1982. The book became a bestseller, but the predicted catastrophes did not occur.
Okay, I guess it wasn't going to collide, but it said some shit. I remember I was little.
But is this sci-fi or like intended to be nonfiction?
It was intended to be nonfiction.
Okay, well then that's stupid. Sci-fi is like you're always going to get something that is a little bit not quite right. And that's okay. If it's a really cool story, you can let it get away with something. Unless it's, like 2001: A Space Odyssey, I'm like, this is totally like, this is airtight, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm willing to let it go a little bit just for a good story. But if
what were you going to say, Mike?
So a little bit about the writer, a British science writer, astrophysicist, and visiting fellow in astronomy at the University of Sussex. His writings include quantum physics, human evolution, climate change, global warming, origins of the universe, and biographies of other famous scientists. But it does say he also writes a bit of science fiction.
Oh, Asimov. Little sneak.
Asimov did the cover of his book.
Oh, shit. Isaac Asimov.
Also, we have a super chat that came in.
Oh, what is that?
Well, a couple actually. Vo Williams sent in 2. He said, Dave gave us an opportunity to remember humility, openness, and curiosity. Don't have so much ego that you resist growth. Ask yourself, where in my life am I Jamaring?
Yo, what the Oh, this is not...
Let's turn that into a verb.
Yo, you guys.
Bo Williams also said, flat Earth is a scientific debate. Moon landing seems more like a historical debate, but is there any little known fact about the landing that impacts our daily lives or anything that would eliminate speculation?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, there's not that I can think of, right? That does make sense to frame it as more of a historical debate. I mean, not quite. There's definitely a lot of science that goes into like the what moon landing deniers bring up is often just they don't understand how lighting works and shadows and things like that. But moon landing denial is infinitely more, not infinitely, but 1,000 times more defensible than flat Earth, because for precisely that, what flat Earth proposes is in complete opposition with everything that we experience in our daily life and basic logic and naked eye observations. Whereas moon landing denial, did they fake it or didn't they? Right? It's almost like a singular data point to a certain extent, but then when you dig into it, it's not that defensible. But yeah, it's a reasonable way of framing it.
Is there another question there? What is dark matter, sir?
So the short answer is nobody knows. If I knew, I'd have a Nobel Prize. But so there are certain anomalies. The first thing that brought our attention to the idea that there is matter. The short answer is it's matter that doesn't interact with light.
Okay.
And so we can tell it's there due to a number of things in terms of galactic rotation, or its rotational velocities as stars go around the galaxy. But contrary to popular belief, that's not the only evidence that we have for it. So there's this thing called gravitational lensing. Mm-hmm. So light curves around massive objects. That's actually the way that Einstein first demonstrated general relativity, the famous Eddington experiment. During the solar eclipse, he said, there's a star that's supposed to be right behind the sun, but we're going to see it. It'll be shifted because the light is going to curve around the sun. So that confirmed, and then there's a bunch of other stuff. But we see gravitational lensing around seemingly empty space. So far away, images of galaxies, very, very distant galaxies, will be lensed around what seems to be nothing there. So there's a lot of evidence for dark matter. We don't know what it is. Unfortunately, physicists are a little bit whimsical, and so something like dark matter, the public runs with it and are like, this is ridiculous, dark matter. That sounds so magical. It's not. It's non-baryonic matter. They could have just called it non-baryonic matter, because the reason that we see things is that if something is made of atoms, like most of the shit around us, light illuminates it, and then it interacts with the electrons in that atom. The electrons go to an excited state, and then they relax back down and they emit photons. Those photons hit our eyes. So you see things that are made of atoms because of that electronic transition process. So if something isn't, if there's other matter that isn't structured that way, right, protons and neutrons and electrons, then it's not going to do that, and you can't see it, right? But there's plenty of different kinds of subatomic particles that won't interact with light, but they're still there and they're still massive. So there's a lot of contenders for it. There's these different WIMPs and machos, weakly interacting massive particles. Some say it's a bunch of submicroscopic black holes, and I don't know. I will when they figure out what it is, I'll report on it, but I have no ability to weigh in on what it is. But we're quite certain it's there.
Right on.
Time travel. Possibility. The possibility.
Well, they mean like teleporting?
Time travel. Like
into the past, no. Well, into the future, actually quite easy, or not really easy, but all you have to do is go really, really fast in a rocket ship and come back, and it'll be the future.
Yeah, well, I know they were talking about, like, they have done teleportation with what is it? Not atoms, not molecules. Something they were doing. They did an experiment where
maybe an electron or something.
Electrons, and they saw one electron on one side and it moved to another. They said they could do it with subatomic particles, but not.
Yeah, quantum teleportation.
There you go.
That might be true. I think that might be true. Yeah.
Yeah, in that level. So they say, is it possible to? Are you studied quantum physics, obviously, right?
A little bit, not too much, just enough to make some content on it. But
I call it invisible math.
No, the math, yeah, it's
invisible math. Pretty much.
My quantum mechanics content is some of my favorite content because I hired a quantum physicist to write the scripts, and and so I had to kind of like learn it. He was basically teaching me. So I was making the content, and then I'd get confused, and I'd have to have a Zoom call with him, and like, what is this part? I don't get it. Yeah. And so my content there, it's actually, I'm really proud of it, and people really like it. I encounter college students that are doing third year, junior year quantum chemistry courses that are like, dude, it's so good. And I'm like, the reason it's good is because I just learned it.
Yeah. I'm glad you got it. That shit is not easy.
That's what it is.
That shit is not easy, man.
In that like context of that light bulb moment of like, that's what made me get it. So I'll tell you what I just figured out 10 minutes ago.
The Akash field. Am I saying that right? The Akash. It's like it talks about the Akash field. Is it called something like the Akash field? It talks about like what you damn it, I want to get it right.
Maybe spell it.
The AKASHICK.
Yes. What is
a cosmic field that stores and transmits all information and knowledge in the universe?
Yeah, it was just I had this book about that, and it was about quantum physics and all this other stuff. I was just like, and it's really quantum physics is difficult. I'm not like a math genius. But when you're reading the concepts of it, you're just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
I mean, it is very rigorously mathematical. And just I will say with quantum physics, beware of quantum physics is the area of popular science that is the most rife with pseudoscience. So there's this thing called quantum mysticism. Okay. So it's a cultural fad. It's basically just quantum physics is really complicated, so it's magic. So any magic I want to be real can be real if I use the language of quantum mechanics to describe it. So there's a bunch of bullshit out there.
Okay.
That's just like such and such magic is real because I said the word quantum a bunch of times.
Yeah, right.
And people fall for it.
But
Godfrey brought up quantum teleportation, and I'm pretty sure that is a thing in terms of like a single electron. So it's hard for even for me as a science communicator to immediately be like, wait, no, this is bullshit, or no, that's real science.
Right.
It's tricky.
Yeah. What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna ask in that same vein, like, what about the work of like Masaru Emoto? Are you familiar with him at all?
Complete bullshit. Complete unfettered bullshit. Wow. Con man, not a scientist.
Mamu, what's his name?
Masaru Emoto.
So Masaru Emoto is this jerk who said that so he took water and froze it to get ice crystals, and said that if I say nice things
and it turns into a crystal thing.
You're so nice.
That's fake?
Nice shape. But if I go, you're a jerk, or I play heavy metal music, it turns into this
the vibration.
Total bullshit.
Is it bullshit? I was like, yo, did you the crystallizing of positive feelings? Because that's when
he took random pictures under different conditions and then just matched it up with whatever he wanted. James Randi offered him $1 million to reproduce it under controlled settings on television, and
he was like, no,
like, nope, I don't want your $1 million because I know that I'm a fraud. He was not a scientist or a doctor or anything. He is just some jerk.
Yo, dude, because he's Japanese, so we go, oh shit, and so. He uses Asianness, goes, they will believe
Same with Deepak Chopra, right?
Yeah.
Fuck
him.
Seems like he would
First of all,
wise,
this
right?
motherfucker, my brother read his book, Ageless Mind, Timeless Body.
Yes. Yeah, that was one of
my brother ones. Was like, yo, you got to read the Deepak.
Yeah.
The Deepak.
Funny
Chopra.
how Deepak aged, huh?
Yeah. And then
that's because the astrological.
Well, hold on, no, I got it. I was watching this motherfucker, and I was like, he's saying nothing like this.
He says,
he goes, "This is a can, and this is me. My soul is in the can. Does it matter what the difference is? Good night."
Yeah.
What? The fuck? And it's mainly all white people going, oh, they're taking those like my body and my mind and my body and mind are one, but what is it? But air in between the molecules. Good night. Yep. The fuck? Yeah. And that's when you say science and spirituality meet, kind of. Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yeah. Also gigantic fraud.
Get the fuck out of here! Are you serious?
Complete.
Oh my god! I bought one of his books.
What about Mako and hyperspace?
No. Wait! Joe Dispenza. I'm sitting there looking at his meditation. So you're saying that he says that the experiments they've done in meditation, they actually have CAT scans and shit on what happens when people meditate. So all of that shit is. So there's no science in meditate. Oh fuck.
No. Meditate. So here's the thing. Even these frauds, they might mix in something where I can't speak to every single individual claim. I know that he's a gigantic fraud. Meditation is not. I mean, meditation is a good practice that can be have health benefits for people. That's totally true. Okay. I don't know the exact claim you're referencing. I'm sure it's some
manifestation
bullshit that
manifestation. You believe in all that? You believe in all? You don't believe in all that?
No.
Put in the work, baby.
You just put in the work. So you don't believe in vision boards and shit like that.
I mean, look, there's an internal thought process, and then there's the external world.
Okay.
If you're like a motivational speaker and you say some shit that inspires someone, if you're Tony Robbins and you're like, all you got to do is blah blah blah, and that gives somebody something internally, that's their business, right? I can't say, no, you're wrong. You didn't get inspired. I mean, and if you do a vision board and it puts you in the right mental space to be more ambitious or something, I don't know, whatever's going on internal, that's private. That's someone's business. The moment that you start making claims about the external world, if you meditate this way, you can astral project and you can travel over there, or you can move that, or you can make something happen in the external world. That's when it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you can't do that, right? That's not
right.
It's not provable.
I was reading all of those Hay House.
You like a lot of trash.
I was years ago. I was reading Esther and Jerry Hicks, The Law of Attraction. Hold on.
Yeah.
I was reading Science of Mind, Ernest, whatever the fuck his name. All these guys from 1940, 1930, even Napoleon Hill. Yeah. But Napoleon was talking about putting in the work and stuff like that. And he always says there's divine intervention when you are working. You've put the work in. God helps those who helps themselves. And what a man thinketh, so is he.
Yeah, but Jordan Peterson does that stuff. Anytime
I was reading Emerson, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I was reading all of these guys that all said, if you put your mind and stuff, you think about, things will manifest as you're moving through. I mean, all right. Damn.
If you work hard, good things will come. I mean, is that really so profound?
Yeah. I mean, but what
they
do you
dress it up in a spiritual way to ensnare you, but in the end, that's really all they're saying.
It's trash.
Clean your room. And this guy's such
so coincidence is bullshit. Carlos Castanedas, you know about Carlos Castanedas?
Yeah, more trash.
No?
Yeah, all of that mumbo,
the Celestine prophecy.
Yeah, all that spiritual horse shit that you can't repeat this, you can't experiment and repeat these things over there, making these claims that you can't prove.
Wow.
But what about hyperspace and Mako?
No, he's going to say something. Hold on.
Well, I was just going to brief. I'll get to hyperspace too, but I was just going to briefly say, like, in terms of spirituality, right? The idea of non-overlapping magisteria, right? We're talking about there's empirical science, and then there's spirituality. Spirituality is personal. When you want to think about how should I live my life? What is the meaning of life? How do I be happy? Things like that. Empirical science is not great for that. It's okay. You can talk about psychology and biology and things, but if you get into some spiritual practice and that provides you with answers to those questions, that's what spirituality is good for. And everybody's entitled to explore their own personal spirituality. It could be religion, it could be yoga, it could be rock climbing, it could be whatever the hell you want to do. Yeah. But in terms of probing the physical world, it's worthless for that. Empirical science is what we use for that. So that's just for spirituality. But you asked about hyperspace. So hyperspace, as far as I understand, is just like another ramification of general relativity, where we're talking about enough energy to put a rip in the space-time fabric and travel that way. That's, I think, the only legitimate way to talk about what we would call hyperspace, but I'm not sure what other people are saying about it.
Okay.
Well, what do you, Mike? What's going on?
A couple more super chats came through.
Okay.
Genesis sent $10. Said even in the Bible it shows the Earth is a sphere. Read Isaiah 40:22 and Revelation 7:1.
Okay.
And the four corners mean the four directions: north, east, south, and west.
Okay.
If you want to interpret it that way, it also says the Earth doesn't move. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, the point is, who gives a shit what the Bible says about the shape of the earth? It doesn't matter. Those people who wrote that had no idea what they were talking about, right? Okay. Says it's a sphere, says it's flat. Who cares, right? We live today. We can do science today to know things.
Right. Go ahead.
And then Queen Aries says, "Hi, Dave. Can you explain where the Earth's moon came from and why it's important? Because some people think it doesn't exist, even though you can literally look up and see it." Love your channel, by the way.
There's a moon.
You can look up. I mean, yeah, like I said, I look at it with Mount Wilson telescope, and I'm just seeing all the craters and stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So our best understanding is that it was a collision event very early in the formation of the solar system. So very soon after the formation of the Earth, this other body around, a third the size of the Earth, which I think we call, what did we call it? Theia. I think we gave it a name. That might not be right, but I think that's what it is. Okay. So there was a collision, right? When a solar system is first forming, there's so many bodies, there's so much rock and debris everywhere, and everything's crashing into each other as things slowly over millions and millions of years settle down into discrete planets and everything. So very early in the solar system, you had the Earth, and this other body slammed into it, and so so much of the Earth got flung out around the Earth, and then it began to coalesce and form the moon. So the moon is actually made predominantly of material from the Earth. That's why, compositionally speaking, in terms of the minerals and things that you find on the moon, they're directly parallel the structure of the Earth, because it's the Earth. Most of it was the Earth.
Yeah.
But it explains other things too, like the tilt in the rotational axis, right? All of the planets initially have their rotation. The rotation is occurring within the ecliptic, the plane of the solar system, and then different collision events, right? Something slammed into the Earth, and that's what tilted it. And then the same thing happened to Uranus. It's tilted to 90 degrees.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of it. Yeah.
Okay. What else they got there? Any other bums ready for that beatdown?
No, not yet.
I got an intelligent design question. So you people talk about, religious people always talk about intelligent design, but is it true that 99% of all animals are extinct or have become extinct? And so can you talk about that in reference to the fact that where they say, oh, the world is perfect, like that they believe that a deity made the world perfect for human beings to live on it, yet and still 99% of, or maybe, I'm not sure if the percentage is right, of the animals on the earth have been extinct. Not only that, but we're also on a world that where they went to Antarctica, you could freeze out there. You have tornadoes and tsunamis and stuff. Can you kind of address that?
Sure. Yeah. Many questions. It's you're correct. I don't know the exact percentage, but something like 99 or more than 99% of all the species that have ever existed are gone. So definitely from at least the perspective of a more biblical framed creationist, right? You have this God that's like, I will create all this stuff, and then I don't like you. Die. I don't like you. Die. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But to speak specifically to intelligent design, because this is important. So intelligent design is a Christian evangelical propaganda movement Christian evangelicals are of a certain variety, especially wealthy ones, are interested in eroding the separation of church and state. They like to try to shove, they want to get the 10 Commandments in the public schools, get creationism taught in public school biology classes and things like that. And so in the 80s, they wanted creation science to be taught alongside evolutionary biology. Teach the controversy. Evolution is controversial. We got to teach the creation science too, right? Because it's public schools. So we want to teach it's not science. But so they tried to do it. They had this textbook called Pandas and People, and they put all their bullshit in there, all of their propaganda, all of their lies. And they tried to go, hey, we got to get this in the public schools. And the Supreme Court, it was Edwards v. Gillard, said, no, this is religion. it's religion. It's not science. So we're not teaching in public schools. So that put a stigma on the term creation science. And what they did is they needed a rebranding campaign. So they changed it. They changed nothing about it except they started calling it intelligent design. So instead of creationist proponents, they called it, or instead of creationists, they called it intelligent design proponents. And then the only thing they changed is that they made no direct reference to the Christian God. They didn't say the Christian God. They just said a designer. I don't know who. Could it be? Could be aliens. It's probably the Christian God, though. You guys, it's totally because they knew that everyone would just, well, duh, it's the Christian God. That's the God I believe in. And so then they continued that, and so they again, in 2005, they tried to do this and went to court and tried to get this in a particular state going into schools. And again, it was shot down by a Christian judge. It was like, no, this is religion. And so these guys are called the Discovery Institute. They operate out of Seattle, and it's just a roster of these preachers that sort of disguise themselves as scholars. They wear suits and they have a doctorate in a tangential field that they got somehow, and they speak in a very in a certain way. They appear very professional. It's very good. It's very good propaganda. I will say it's the best Christian propaganda in the physical sciences that I'm aware of, which is why I devote a hell of a lot of time to debunking the shit out of them. They fucking hate me over there. I'm there. They hate me more than anybody in the world at Discovery Institute. So that's what it is. I definitely want everyone to be perfectly aware that intelligent design is Christian propaganda. It's a rebranding of creation science. And we know for a fact that this is what it is because that Of Pandas and People, they kept that textbook, and then all they did was they did a search and replace of creationists to replace with design proponents. And it fucked up. So in one place, they have a typo that says "see design proponentsists." And so it's just like, dude, you guys literally took the same textbook, did a search and replace. One of them fucked up, and you're just like, hey, remember the book that you said was unconstitutional to force on public school children? How about this one? It's the same book.
Wow.
Like, wow. Oh my God, you guys are unbelievable. Watch out for intelligent design. Anyone who's
damn. Fuck all them. Damn it. All right.
Yeah, it's a bunch of bullshit.
It's a bunch of bullshit. Dr. Joe Dispenza, this guy's like huge right now, and he's fucking suckering people.
Deepak is huge.
Yeah, Deepak is wealthy from his bullshit.
And look at Jordan Peterson now. Who
Peterson is
he's a dirtbag.
That guy is the worst.
He is the dirtbag.
But he's into that mental.
Well, he hasn't really. Well, I think he's starting to say that he's a Christian now. But he's a dude. When you ask him questions, he'll go. He does. Well, what do we mean by is?
Oh,
like,
God.
what do we mean God? What do you mean by?
It's the Bill Clinton defense. He's very evasive because he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to out himself as an evangelical because that immediately discredits him as an intellectual. Honestly, if we're being honest, the more that you are just transparently an evangelical, it's just how are we going to take you seriously as this great thinker? You know what I mean? But
and he cries too much. To be a scientist.
He does. Did you see him cry when they were talking about like incels and like you're the hero of the incels? He straight up started weeping.
So horrible
for the incels.
These guys, they should each have a woman for their own.
And that damn Canadian accent. What's that about? Shut up. I'm not here to not shut up.
He don't say. You think Deepak don't say nothing.
Yeah. I mean, this is a whole other topic, so maybe you guys invite me on another time. But the whole culture war and all of these figures that talk about transgender stuff and all this stuff, it's just complete culture war bullshit. From demagogues to polarize the public in a particular way politically.
Oh yeah, we will definitely bring you back for that. That'll be fun. That'll be
fun. Just in order to control, to miseducate and dumb the population down so that they can control.
Anti-academia sentiment, any kind of anti-establishment, blanket anti-establishment sentiment, and just all the just highly conservative talking points that are meant to like polarize centrists to the right.
That's why I liked Christopher Hitchens, man.
Hitchens was the man,
right? Ooh, baby boy, he was tearing motherfuckers.
They got a couple young dudes that are young guys. What's the young English dude? That kid that's
Alex O'Connor.
Yeah, he's smoking them, and there's another
smart guy.
I remember the Christopher Hitchens versus Al Sharpton. I was laughing the whole time. He goes, "How do you know there's the presence of God?" Well, because I feel God. God, you have to. It was the funny, and Chris was like. That's not helping us. That's not, he goes, I'm talking about physical. No, God is it was the greatest shit.
Because he was funny and he was charming.
Hilarious. And him smashing on fucking Mother Teresa, the Albanian steal it. Oh, he's just fantastic.
Thief,
That's my smart ex-girlfriend. She put me up on Christopher Hitchens years ago.
They got, what are you, Dillhunty is doing it. They have this whole atheist skeptic channel now that's blowing up, and this kid Dillhunty he spanked Jordan Peterson. He did a debate.
He's super smart.
Yeah. Well, dude, Dave, this was awesome, bro.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming through. And I hope that we gave you enough stuff. We were kind of smart today. I don't know. Shit.
Well, I owe it to you guys. I mean, that clip is really circulating. So,
and you know,
I get a little, you guys get a little.
Well, I figured you'd have your own version of it.
Yeah.
I didn't put mine up, for some reasons. And
but at your discretion. It's still, I wanted mine, and it's making the rounds. So.
It's making the fucking rounds, and I'm sure you have a lot of subscribers. Tell them to subscribe over here too. Subscribe to In Godfrey We Trust, God, and you know what? Yeah. When it comes to science, I would love to bring you on every once in a while. Come and talk some science and all kinds of shit. I love what you're doing. Yeah. I like people. I like skepticism.
And a couple people has hit Dave up like black creator channels. Has hit Dave up in there, where he's...
And we're not just a black channel, man. We just happen to be black dudes, man. Just saying that the brothers like you, man. Yeah. I don't mean that 80s Eddie Murphy voice.
It's dope that we get, you know what I'm saying? That you
it's great. It's great. It's a great demographic. Yeah.
Get a voice and kind of talk this real shit as opposed to all this the horse shit and the misinformation.
The path to elevating the black community. The path to elevating the black community is through education, through engaging with science and technology and academia.
No doubt, man. This was awesome, man. Thank you for tell them your Instagram or your YouTube is massive, but.
Yeah, it's the others. I mean, Professor Dave Explains on YouTube. I have Instagram. It's Dave Explains and other stuff. I don't really care.
It's 11.4 thousand. I saw that. I was like, you don't give a fuck about that.
I don't do too much. YouTube is the thing that works. So
you go with what works. That's right. I appreciate you,
Dave. Thank you, man.
This was badass.
Really,
show.
Thank
you guys.
It was so dope.
You will definitely be back again, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Take it easy. Have a good night. Right on. That was awesome. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I feel good.
You know what I feel good about? It was science and we were just learning. And I like that.